Hello and welcome to another episode of Dads of Detroit. My name is Chip Van Gundy. I am so excited and thankful that you're here with us today. Today's date is February the 20th, Friday, 2026, year of our Lord. Listen, you've probably heard by now about an horrific uh, event that took place earlier this week where a mother of six took the life of her ex-wife as well as one of her own children. We're going to refresh as to what it is that happened, and then we're going to have a discussion quickly thereafter. Before we get started, though, like, share, subscribe this post, this page. We are trying to have the type of dialogue that I think is probably all but evaporated from the public space this way. A fair, balanced perspective. I'm one of those people that genuinely believes that a person's dying wish should be honored. Um, and we believe that this is an all American, great, beautiful mother that we see on the screen, or at least that's the way she wanted to be accepted by her family. I don't want to jump into the conversation too much. Let's level set by looking at a couple of the videos that I've seen, quite frankly, on social media that paint somewhat of a vivid picture as to what it is that happened. And then maybe you and I can dissect it a little bit more after the videos. Let's take a look.
The person behind the trigger, transgender killer Robert Dorgan, murdered.
Let me set this up for you here.
We're learning more about the victims of the horrific mass shooting at a high school hockey game in Rhode Island Monday. The person behind the trigger, transgender killer Robert Dorgan, murdered his son Aiden and his ex-wife Rhonda and critically injured former in-laws Linda and Gerald Dorgan. A family friend named Thomas Geruso was also critically wounded. And to make matters even worse, all of this violence went down while Robert's other son, Colin, was just feet away on the ice playing hockey. Now, cops say Dorgan had two legally obtained handguns, a Glock 10 and a SIG P226. They say he had frequented games in the past and made no indication that this time was any different, noting he said nothing before opening fire. Dorgan was overpowered by three Good Samaritans who were in the stands, but that is when he produced his second weapon and shot himself. A family GoFundMe noted that Colin and his sister Ava are now parentless after the massacre. Now, Colin, a 17-year-old high school senior, is a multi-sport athlete, and his sister Ava, a nursing student. Now, a relative said that Dorgan had a total of 6 kids.
Alrighty, so that's a little bit there. Let me show you another video that, again, may provide a little bit more context.
Tension had been high for years leading up to the mass shooting of a family at a hockey rink in Pawtucket, Rhode Island yesterday afternoon. It was around 2:30 on Monday afternoon when a 56-year-old transgender woman named Robert Dorgan.
And I also think that we, quite frankly, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I think it's worth striking the record even at this point in our conversation. There has been such a large debate about there being no difference. And if there is no difference between these two genders, then I don't even think there's a need at this point to differentiate the two. Just acknowledge the individual in the way that they desire to be acknowledged. And I don't even believe that she wanted to be acknowledged as a transgender woman. I believe she wanted to be acknowledged as a woman. That's who she felt as though she was. But I'll let this video play itself out.
Who referred to herself as Roberta Esposito, brought 2 guns into a hockey rink and ambushed her family in the stands as they watched the game. The victims have been identified as Dorgan's ex-wife, 52-year-old Rhonda Dorgan, the couple's 23-year-old son, as well as 2 other family members who remain in critical condition. Thankfully, a bystander was able to wrestle the gun away from Dorgan, but Dorgan then pulled out a second weapon and shot and killed herself. Up until 2020, the 56-year-old lived as Robert Robert Dorgan, along with his wife Rhonda Dorgan and their children. But in 2020, Robert had gender reassignment surgery and started living as Roberta Esposito, which is when Rhonda filed for divorce, listing the reason as gender reassignment surgery and narcissism. The victims were at the game watching their son play at his senior night hockey game when Dorgan attacked the family from behind, shooting them 13 times. Tension had
Help us, Lord. All right. So, and I don't know any. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know either of those two young ladies from the videos that we just watched to be reputable journalists, but we've done a little, we've done some research on the internet, and we've tried to at least gather what is the public consensus. And so that's not me saying that any of what they've said is accurate. I want to be clear about that, because, and I think that's kind of why we here on our podcast, Dads of Detroit, I think that's probably why we aren't so interested in being the first person to talk about these issues. We kind of like the facts to kind of come out, right? Because we're seeing that sometimes what's initially reported, oftentimes isn't really what happened. And so we like to wait a couple of days and see, and allow the public consensus to build, and allow theories to really kind of harden before we really give our viewpoints. I've covered a couple of stories before, and I covered them vehemently. I almost can think of one I've covered before. With the gentleman who lost his life in Minnesota, and I responded. I did a quick take to what I thought was before my eyes, and I was completely wrong. And so that, amongst other reasons, is kind of why we want to let the smoke kind of settle before we begin to kind of dissect what exactly took place here. But I think that it is the public consensus, one, that what we've just watched is what is believed to have happened, and then two, that this is more than just a coincidence. This has become a phenomenon. This has become quite frankly, the new face of terror. This has become the thing that keeps us from being safe. Right? This mother of six turned a GUN on her own family, her own children. And I think it's in large part as we were doing the research and listening to different perspectives, one of the perspectives that continue to be kind of said or spoke of is this unwillingness to be accepted by her own family. And pardon me, I don't remember what exactly she wanted to be referred to, but she was victimized by her own family. This is an American woman. This is, and when you look at, I want to put her back up on the screen. When you see this, when you look at this woman, I want you to understand and acknowledge that this is the face of the all-American mother. This is your typical blonde mother of six here in America. This is who she is. And she was not able to get the acceptance from her family that she wanted. And I believe it caused the type of depression and anxiety that may have pushed her to this space. But there's a valid debate that we should be having on both ends of this, right? One is, how do we ensure that women who have this type of story, this type of history throughout their lives, these type of experiences, how can they be validated? How can they be accepted? Because quite frankly, that is what you're pushing for, right? This is what you want to make acceptable. This is what the public consensus has become. We must accept. We must acknowledge. We must We must concede our former way of thinking. And let me just be quite frank with you. There have been turns, many turns throughout history. Quite frankly, there are people alive today. I'm in Sherman, Texas. Let me put this up. So am I. Oh, that's not. Shout out to the D. But I am in Sherman, Texas today. There are people in Sherman, Texas, quite frankly, who I'm well aware. I got a funny feeling and a sneaky suspicion that there was a time in their life where they openly said the N word. But you know what? Somewhere along life's journey, what was publicly acceptable was no longer acceptable. And so now to use that type of language in a public space, quite frankly, would be frowned upon, and rightfully so. But as the public consensus begins to move, that creates an opportunity for debate. Should we refer to people of color as Negroes? Should we not? Is it a term of endearment? Is it a derogatory term? What is the history of it? What is the lineage of it? What is the context? And I think that we're having the same debate here. But what we're missing, quite frankly, and I believe the people that aren't a part of these conversations are the fathers, people like you and I, level-headed, sober-minded people, people who are fathers and who are, quite frankly, proud to be fathers. There's a conversation that's also going on about what is acceptable. Is this where we're going? And if this is where we're going, then what is to be said of those who respond in this way? There is and has been, quite frankly, in the public space for many years now, this persistence to accept this frame of thought. And so as this becomes the norm in our society, as this woman today represents the beautiful blonde American mother, this is the new image. And quite frankly, I'm not certain that it's a new image, because as we have the conversation from people from different communities, they insist that people who have different gender expression, quite frankly, have always existed. And so, again, the debate is in that vein whether they've always existed and if they'll exist in the public space. But what you're looking at is the new American mother. That's what you're looking at today. And you're also looking at someone who is troubled by their family's unwillingness to accept them. We all just want to be accepted for who we are, right? I know me certainly as an African American and a dad here in Detroit. I certainly want to be accepted for who I genuinely am. This is an American mother who wanted to be accepted for who she genuinely was, and she did not receive that, and so she responded in a way that was her own. But there's also, if we're willing to zoom out and if we're willing to maintain a sober mind, we also have to give proper credence to the fact, to the notion, to the theory that this is either to be publicly accepted or this is an insidious infection. And quite frankly, you have to have both people at the table. Obviously, you have to, with such stark differences in opinion, people have to maintain decorum and respect for one another, certainly. But both perspectives are valid. Should this be accepted? Should people who have challenging times, or I don't want to say challenging, should individuals who have fluid gender expression be accepted by all of society? Or is this something that we should not accept? As a father, I'm troubled. I'm troubled because there is a pattern of there's a pattern of something that isn't right, that isn't fair, quite frankly. I'm troubled by what we're seeing. But this is the image of the new American mom that you asked for, at least one half of the country. And the other half of the country is saying people who exhibit these types of thoughts have mental issues. But what we're beginning to see is that those who have that frame of thought, those people are being frowned upon, just like those who still say the N word in the public space. But let's have the debate. Let's be fair. Let's be sober minded. Is this the new American mother? Or is this someone who had mental challenges? Now, obviously, when you speak of someone who turned to GUN on their own family members, I think the public consensus would be that something has gone afoot. Certainly, right? Something isn't something isn't right, right? Or has that line been blurred or moved? Is this is this an adequate response to someone not being accepted for who they genuinely are? Is this okay? I want to know what your thoughts are. You're watching the Dads of Detroit podcast. We'll be right back. Hey friends, Chip here. I want to thank you so much for watching Dads of Detroit. Now, we are having the type of conversations that you want to hear, that you want to be a part of, that you want to engage in, because we dads here in Detroit, Michigan, we're sober minded. We are vigilant. We are mindful of what it takes to rear our families in the fear of the Lord with respect for our country, right? We are dads who aren't ashamed of being fathers first. We own the lameness of being a father. I enjoy chasing around toddlers. That's my favorite thing to do. So get on in here, share, like, subscribe to the conversations that we're having, because we are certain that they are intellectual, they are fruitful, and they are sober minded. Like, share, subscribe. You're watching the Dads of Detroit. Thank you. All right, let's set up my girl Jasmine. My girl Jasmine Crockett is coming up now. Oh, is it this camera? Was I looking at the wrong camera? I was looking at the wrong camera. I might have to do that all over again. I think I was looking at the wrong camera. Um, how do I edit that? Can I edit that and make that that? Well, it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. Okay. Hey friends, thank you so much for watching. Oh, let me look here. Hey friends, thank you so much for watching Dads of Detroit. We're having the type of discussions that you want to be a part of. They're intellectual, they are sober minded, they are balanced, they are fair and, and unbiased to the best of our ability. Now, listen, we've all got some biases now, and we're not going to deny that reality, right? Let's be fair, let's be open about it. We have some biases because we're human, we're dads, right? But we're willing to hear both sides in a way that you probably haven't heard in a while. So, like, share, and subscribe. We're having the type of conversations that are fruitful, that are intellectual, and we thank you for being a part of them. See you soon. Welcome back to Dads of Detroit podcast. I'm your host, Chip Van Gundy. I am so thankful that you are watching us here. I'm filming here in Sherman, Texas. Can't wait to be back, uh, back in my own bed, quite frankly, my home bed, quite frankly, in Detroit, Michigan. But we came down to Texas for a number of reasons: family here, work here. But there's also an election that's taking place. Big, big election that's taking place, and we are we are saddened, quite frankly. We are saddened to see what has taken place over the last few days. And if you don't know exactly what took place, I'm going to catch you up to speed with our friend Jasmine Crockett. Now, if you know anything about Jasmine Crockett, you know that she is an outspoken congresswoman who is now running for the U.S. Senate seat in Texas. Now, obviously, before you get to the general, you have to get past the primary, right? And so Miss Jasmine is in a battle of her career. She is trying to win the Democratic primary and represent the Democratic Party and do what I don't think has ever been done. I know we had Beto O'Rourke, if I'm not mistaken, a few years ago, a few races ago, I should say, in a very closely contested race versus Ted Cruz. But if I'm, and you let me know in the comments if I'm incorrect about that, I believe that's the last time we've ever had a Democratic candidate come so close to winning the election here. Let's see here. Bear with me a moment. I'm pulling up a video that I believe um, sheds more light on. Okay, here it goes. I got it now. I'm about to play a video for you that I believe sheds a little bit more light on what exactly is taking place. And as we do here on the Dads of Detroit podcast, we're going to process the video together, and then we're going to have a little conversation and ask a few questions afterwards. As of right now, we are discussing Miss Jasmine Crockett's run for U.S. Senate here in Texas. I came down to Texas in large part, unbeknownst to myself at a point, to support Miss Jasmine. And when I arrived here, I was disheartened by what we believe or what we are beginning to see has been some type of maneuvering. And I want to have a conversation with you about it, particularly our black women. And I'll get to that in just a minute why I called out my sisters by name. But before we get there, I want to play this video for you because I believe it paints a vivid picture for us as to what's taking place in the race right now. Let's listen.
One of my guests tonight, that's Texas State Representative James Tallarico. He was supposed to be here, but we were told in no uncertain terms by our network's lawyers, who called us directly, that we could not have him on the broadcast. Then I was told in some uncertain terms that not only could I not have him on, I could not mention me not having him on. And because my network clearly doesn't want us to talk about this, let's talk about this. You've probably heard.
All right. So, and that's not even close to done. But let's just process that for just 2 seconds. I'm not going to talk for very long. I want to get back to this video, and then we'll have our full discussion afterwards. But if you are an undecided voter right now, and you are a Stephen, and I came up in the days of David Letterman, right? And hindsight is obviously 2020. I don't know if David Letterman will be seen as a good person or a bad person, at the end of it all. But we watch David Letterman every night, and maybe I don't know, but for this to be this generation's version of David Letterman, I don't know. I felt like David was just a little bit more in the middle of things, in the middle. You know what I mean? And that's the way you should be. Again, we all have some level of bias, and so we don't exist. We don't we don't expect for there to be no bias within your approach. We just want it to be so hard to pick up on, um, you know, because when you posture yourself in these type of seats on the late night talk show, in these type of, or in the morning talk, or in the, on the news, or on things that are news adjacent, because a lot of the shows that we believe are reputable places to get information are, quite frankly, just opinion pieces. Is kind of what we're beginning to see, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when people who do opinion work present themselves as kind of like straight shooters, so to speak. But what's taking place here, if nothing else, is this host has created a very valid question. Let's ask it together. Who is James? Who is James? I don't want to butcher his last name, Mr. James T, because in the past election with Vice President Harris, there was a big uproar with people mispronouncing their name, and that's why I just stuck with Vice President Harris, because we don't want to seem in any way disrespectful, right? So who is James? Who is this gentleman? And from the posturing that we saw a moment ago, it says, why is everyone so afraid of this guy? What this monologue has done, it has created what I would think would be some good curiosity for this candidate during the time of early voting. Yeah. So this is, in one way or another, this is creating good buzz for this guy, because obviously the viewers of this particular broadcast are anti-Trump. That's fine. They come there to see that type of content, and he's speaking in a very glowing fashion about this particular candidate, which is going to create some interest just days before the election. The early voting has already started here in Texas, and so let's let him speak a little bit further. But I just wanted to make that clear. If nothing else, if this was the end of our discussion, we have genuine interest as to who this individual is, and we feel like he is a wrecking ball, right? He's a big deal, so big that someone said he couldn't be seen on television. This guy is such a big deal. We're trying to hide him from national viewers, because if he is seen by national viewers, he's going to take over. He's going to take the state. Not only is he going to take the primary, I mean, the primary is an afterthought. He's going to flip Texas. We got to stop this guy, is what we've been given up until this point. Is that fair? Let me know if that's fair in the comments.
You might have heard of this thing called the equal time rule, okay? It's an old FCC rule that applies only to radio and broadcast television, not cable or streaming, that says if a show has a candidate on during an election, they have to have all that candidate's opponents on as well. It's the FCC's most time-honored rule, right after no nipples at the Super Bowl. There's long been an exception for this rule, an exception for news interviews and talk show interviews with politicians. Now, that's crucial. How else were voters supposed to know back in '92 that Bill Clinton sucked at saxophone? But on January 21st of this year, a letter was released by FCC Chairman and smug bowling pin Brendan Carr. In this letter, Carr said he was thinking about dropping the exception for talk shows because he said some of them were motivated by partisan purposes. Well, sir, you're chairman of the FCC, so FCCU. Now, here's the thing. I don't usually say this to a guest, but if people are watching this right now, it's because they found us online on YouTube. I did an act of the...
Okay, so we've seen enough. A very, very, very welcoming demeanor. And this guy, hey, listen. Come on, let's play ball, right? What happened and what we're beginning to know, and I just want to gloss over this really quickly with you, and I want to get your thoughts at the end. It turns out that The federal government, the FCC, did nothing. The story then went to the idea that, oh, the lawyers at CBS. Well, the initial story was that we did not say that to Mr. Colbert, the gentleman who, I don't want to butcher his name either. We didn't say that to Stephen. We didn't say that to the host of the Late Show. We didn't say that to him. We didn't say that the FCC said anything. And then the next, line of speculation, the line of reasoning that was presented was that, oh, well, and this did not come from CBS. This next line of speculation came from the pundits, came from the viewers, came from not from the viewers, but from the late night talk show hosts, the panels that are sometimes on Fox, sometimes on CNN, right? They have those late night panels and people pontificate as to what really, really took place. And in doing so, they suggest to us what the real story is underneath the story. And the second theory, the first theory was that they weren't allowed to. That was quickly dispelled. The second theory was that they proactively avoided what they knew would have been a big issue. And so they made up this type of term. There was a term that was used like proactive obedience, let's just say, where you follow someone's unlawful demand because you know that if you do what is technically lawful, there will still be some type of backlash. And so, you knowing that the law is unfair, you still decide to follow it just out of fear that there will be retaliation. That was the second theory. And I don't think it could stand up on its own weight. I just don't think it could. And that's in large part because of this face right here, because of our sister, because of Miss Crockett. It was apparent that those two theories were not it. And so, as the smoke has settled and as the days have gone by, we kind of begin to hear what we've been hearing all along. What have we been hearing all along? We've been hearing all along that the Democrats in Texas do not believe that Jasmine Crockett will be good enough to do what James can do. They don't believe that she can do what he can do. That's what it is. They're saying that you, my sister, you can play to Dallas, you can play to Houston, you can play the Fifth Ward, Third Ward, you can play to Oak Cliff. But this gentleman can play to Humble. This gentleman can play to Plano. This gentleman can play to San Antonio. This gentleman can play to El Paso. This gentleman's demeanor, his presentation, or whatever. Now I'm speculating on their behalf. There's something about him that we believe is going to get him further in the general election than you're going to go. We don't think, let me be clear, the powers that be within the party don't believe that she'll ever be good enough. And I say ever because as she began to speak about this incident, Jasmine Crockett is who we're speaking of. Let me put her face up, since it obviously isn't going to be seen on the late show. I'm gonna put her face up here. I'm gonna show you all who Jasmine Crockett is, since she's not going to be seen on any of your late night talk shows between now and the end of the primary. I'm pretty sure they're going to have her on. Hell, she might have a show after the primary, huh? Okay, but she's not going to be viewed anywhere else. So let me support my sister here. They're saying that you won't ever be good enough. And the reason that I'm saying that they're saying she won't ever be good enough, because as she stated herself, her record compared to this other gentleman's record, they pale in comparison. And she spelled it out herself. She's a small business owner. She's been elected or appointed, I believe, to work at both the local and federal level. She's practiced at the state rather, and the federal level. She said that she was the number 5, the top. She was the 5th highest earners of donations in in Congress as a Democrat. Her record is impeccable. She doesn't seem to have had any type of, boyfriends or baby daddies or, dirty money, right? Or DUIs, right? Now, of course, she's opinionated. Of course, she's sassy. Of course, she's a sister. But certainly that's a part of what you all like, right? That's a part of what you like about her. But now that it's time for Jasmine to go to the next level, we we don't think you can do it. And here's my thing. Think what you want. Feel how you want. Have the perspective and opinion about Jasmine Crockett that you want to have. But for you then to say, or to call rather, obviously allegedly, for you to make a call to a late night talk show host and to drum up this theory that in doing so and in explaining this theory, you create this big buzz around a competitor, do the interview, put it on YouTube, and not give other candidates an opportunity or at least an invitation. Now, certainly no one expects for this gentleman, the late night talk show host, to invite Republicans on. I don't, and I don't imagine that it would be a cordial conversation if he did. That's not the point. I don't think that's who they were going for, quite frankly. I think this was intended to get him past the primary. And that has become, now it's Friday, now the smoke is settled. That has become the public consensus. And this, my friends, is a prime example of why the Democratic Party is always under fire. Because having your personal feelings as to what our sister can and cannot accomplish is one thing, but then making a call and creating a story that is probably fabricated, and in doing so, creating buzz. This gentleman was said to have raised $2.5 million as a result of what was discussed here, and him not being able to be seen, him being placed on the internet instead of broadcast television. And then we also coincidentally have a video of former President Barack Obama speaking very glowingly about the same individual, speaking so firmly about his convictions and saying that he believes what he says. I just I think I think that the Democratic Party has colluded in this primary. I think that the powers that be, for whatever reason, and that's my final question. I'm getting there. I'm rounding third base. I'm rounding third base right here. I believe they've colluded in this election like they've done before. You remember Old Joe? Longest tenure senator, or one of the, one of those gentlemen that has just been around for decades. And quite frankly, even if you're the devil's advocate, he waited his turn to be president. He did, because he darn sure has been running since what, probably the 80s, 90s was his first time running, probably the 80s. And then we all know what happened, very well documented. But they waited until the last minute to act on what they already knew. I think that's the public consensus. This is the same party. These are the same people. And now they're saying to one of our own, you can raise money. You can have an impeccable resume, one that pales in comparison to your rival or whoever you're going against, your opponent, I should say. They probably aren't rivals, but they'll be after this. You can have everything that you need to have. But there are certain spaces, there are certain levels that we just don't believe you can occupy. And I'm just curious, after all she's done, after all she has fought against, been one of the most vocal critics of the current administration. And I won't say that she's always been the most articulate. I won't say that she's always, you know, it even got on base when she came up to the plate. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that if you didn't believe that she could win, that's fine. That doesn't mean that you collude, allegedly. And if you do your own research, I might pull it up here in just a moment. If you look at the look on Jasmine's face, she knows it. She knows that it's her own people. It pained her to say that it was her understanding that the federal government did not shut down the interview. It was her understanding that there was some type of manipulation and that she was indeed not invited on to the platform. Now, someone's going to say, well, she's been on there before. Don't play me for dumb. We understand the FCC rules. We understand that the rules change once you become a what? Try it. A declared candidate. And so when she last appeared on the Stephen Colbert show, she wasn't a declared candidate for Senate, right? And so this changes the rules. And so I want to know what you think. When will one of our people be good enough to lead? When will one of our sisters be able to occupy the space and move up to the next level? And if Jasmine can't do it, then what are you looking for? If you don't believe that she has the name recognition and that she's articulate enough to make the argument as to why she should win at least the opportunity to represent the party, then I think it's unfair, and I think that it is a direct indictment on the Democratic Party and their propensity and their persistence to get involved and derail and pervert the vision of the voter. It's unfair what you did to Jasmine. It's unfair what you did to her. And we're watching you, and you're hollowing out the Democratic Party by doing things like this. I'm telling you, you're hollowing it out. You build up these people just to eat them. She's the number 5. She's the 5th highest a donation. I don't want to say earner, right? But she knows how to raise the money. She's got the name recognition. She's got the one-liners, right? Or is that sash just good enough for heckling and raising money? I want to know what you think it is. When will someone like Jasmine Crockett really get a fair shake? See, because here's the thing. If you didn't think she could win, then you should have let her fall flat on the face. No big deal. Let her fall. But to get in the way and to push her over the edge or to push her into the corner, it's something that you all have been doing too much. And I think you're going to begin. I don't even begin. I think you're going to pay the price for it. I think you're going to pay the price for it, because what you don't understand, and I've not had much of an opportunity to even get to know who this gentleman is, but my understanding of Mr. James is that he is someone who perverts the word of God. Uh-oh. 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 And you know, these people down south, they cling to their guns and their Bibles. You know that, right? And so I don't know that this is going to be a winning recipe. But what it does do is it shows us that you guys haven't changed a bit. I want to know what you think. I might be wrong. I've been wrong many times before. But this don't smell right to me. Doing this whole hoopla, knowing that no one made you do it, and the only end result. Okay, well, let me ask you this as I hurry to a close. I'm going to hurry to a close, but I want to ask you this. Well, what happened as a result of all of this? The only thing that happened, 3 things happened. More name recognition during early voting for James Tellerico. I'm going to try to pronounce his name because I don't know him on a first name basis, but I don't want to butcher his name. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Hi, James, if you're seeing this, I mean no harm in the pronunciation of your name. I've got nothing against the gentleman running. I've got something against the party calling Stephen Colbert and making up this story that we couldn't, and doing this entire monologue. Because if in fact what you were saying in the moment, which was the premise for your whole argument, the whole interview, that was the stage that you set for the interview. If any of that was true, then why would you be going against the wishes of your bosses? It just seems it just seems as though he would have had to gone terribly off script, or they knew he was going to say that before he said it. You know what I mean? Either way, something nefarious has taken place, and it isn't the first time, is my point. It's not the first time. And I got a funny feeling and a sneaky suspicion that it won't be the last. Let me know what you think. You're watching the Dads of Detroit. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Have a good one. Hey, friends. Hey, friends. Thank you so much for watching Dads of Detroit. My name is Chip Van Gundy. I'm your host. And here on the Dads of Detroit podcast, we try to leave you with something positive at the end of every episode. And I want to just give a special shout out and congratulations to the class of 2025 here in Detroit. I don't even want to try to DPSCD, the acronym, but I will say to the class of 2025, congratulations on the 83.2 graduation rate, which is an all-time high. And so certainly there are a number of things in our school district and our public schooling system that needs to be improved. But let's stop for just a second and congratulate the students for finishing high school. And let's work on the back end to make sure that our children are more prepared for the world that they're going into. But for now, we say congratulations to the class of 2025. Thank you so much for watching Dads of Detroit. We'll see you soon.